I know in the Art of Hearing God course, it talks about having favor with people to be able to speak into their life.
Yes.
Okay. My question is around, where do you find, because I know in the 1426 gatherings, it's all about encouragement. But yet today in our course, you were talking about we don't rejoice in wrongdoing.
Right.
How do you balance between always just telling somebody the encouraging part with maybe something with that spirit of the fear of man?
Yeah.
How do you, am I making any sense?
Yes, you are.
So
yes, you
help
are.
me understand when I'm in a 1426 gathering or whatever, and there's that thing back here saying, well, what about this over here? But no, I've got to be encouraging. So how do you
determine what to say when you have a challenging thing to say and when to say it and how to say it? Yeah. Now, that's key. Now, just for those of you that are not familiar, 1426 gatherings, the monthly gatherings that we've been doing here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in 2018, where we just gather together, worship, and follow the wind of the Spirit. We have prophetic teams that minister and dream interpretation teams that minister. So, but we can open that up, just any gathering when you're coming together. And here's one of the keys, is recognizing the difference between the gift of prophecy, the ministry of the prophetic, and the office of the prophet, and a leadership position. So those four issues, if you can understand those four issues, it'll give you the basic principles you need to know to be able to answer that question. The gift of prophecy is intended for comfort, encouragement, edification. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 6. The gift of prophecy in a corporate gathering is relegated to that. The gift of prophecy, the ministry of the prophet is different than the gift of prophecy, and the office of a prophet is different than the gift of prophecy and the ministry of the prophetic. Anybody that is a believer, you can all prophesy one by one so that all may learn and all may be encouraged. So anybody that is a believer that has the Spirit of God has the capacity to operate in the gift of prophecy. All can prophesy, but in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, I think it's verse 28, it says some are prophets. All can prophesy, some are prophets. Being able to prophesy and being a prophet are two very different things. And the function of the gift is different in those different places. Somebody that is operating in the gift of prophecy, it is not their place to correct or direct. That actually is a leadership issue, which means it's an authority issue, not a gifting issue. Gifting does not give you authority. It gives you power for service. Position gives you authority, and position is recognized by the body. So if you have the position in the body as someone that's recognized as being a valid prophetic voice that has a track record of accuracy, a track record of ministering prophetically and bearing fruit in people's lives, and the leadership has given you permission to move into the place of correction and direction, then there can be a place for that. And there's a lot of dynamics that relate to that. God will show someone without that place of authority somebody else's issue. And it's not so that they can point out the issue to themselves or to anybody else, but it's so that they can pray. Right? That's the 1 John chapter 5. If anybody sees a brother in sin, let him pray for that brother so that the brother can be restored. I'm not talking about a sin that leads to death, because there's a sin that does not lead to death, but you should pray for that person so that they can be restored. And so God will show us, we will see things that we have no right and no authority to correct, and it's merely for the purpose of intercession. And you will recognize what ministry that you most align with by how you respond in that situation. Because in heaven, there's two ministries that are clearly said that are constantly going on. It says that Jesus ever lives to make intercession for the saints. That his role in heaven, he is an intercessor, and he is constantly interceding for the saints. And it says that the accuser of the brethren accuses them day and night. And so how we release what we see will tell us whether we align more with the ministry of accusation or the ministry of intercession. So it's not the accuracy of the information, but I'm right. They're in it. They're doing this sin. Well, yeah, okay. So your information is right, but you're not right because your attitude's wrong. The devil's right when he accuses us of sin. That's why we need the blood. Yeah, you're right. I did it. God, forgive me. I admit it. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for forgiveness. You don't try to deny it. Oh, I didn't really mean it. That does no good. You don't redeem excuses. You redeem sin. Blood covers sin, not excuses. So you're clearly honest with yourself, and you bring it under the blood. If you see it in somebody else, you cover it with the blood, because love covers a multitude of sins. It doesn't expose it. It covers. Now, if you have a place of leadership in someone's life, then whether or not you see it prophetically or whether you see the action, whatever it may be, when you recognize that there's something wrong in someone's life, if you have a role of leadership, a position of leadership in their life, then you can bring correction to that issue. The ministry of accusation and intercession has to do with the heart attitude, not the action. But it can go there pretty quickly. If you wouldn't have the right to speak into that person's life outside of revelation, revelation does not give you the right to speak into their life. And that's where so much abuse when it comes to the prophetic has come in, because people assume that revelation gives them authority that they don't have. Revelation, gifting does not give authority. Faithfulness and position give person authority. It'll be recognized by the body. There's a difference. Anybody can operate in gifting, but not everybody is given the place of eldership or authority. There's a different set of criteria. If you're going to be in a place of authority, there's a certain set of criteria. And you look at, is it 2 Timothy or 1 Timothy? I always get the two mixed up. But where he talks about, anybody who seeks to be an elder seeks a good thing. Here's what it should look like. And then Titus goes through a similar listing. That's what it looks like to be in a place of authority. And so those are the issues that have to do with authority. Now, I come in as someone that operates in the ministry of the prophetic in a lot of different places. And I've been in places and I've noticed issues. I've noticed people that had, I just saw prophetically, I saw sin in someone's life. I saw situations. And there have been times when I just prayed. And there have been times when I would take their leader aside and say, hey, I think that I'm picking this up. And I just tell them exactly how it came to me so that they would know and they could discern whether they felt like that was something. And I give it to their leader so that their leader could do something with it. And that has been very helpful in a number of situations. But if I have personal relationship with somebody, I've also rebuked people that I have personal relationship, and they usually thank me for it afterwards because they know that I actually care about them. And I can't remember who it was that said this, but I remember hearing this a number of years ago, that if it doesn't hurt you more to confront somebody over their sin than it does them to hear it, you have no right to confront it. And that's a good judgment, because it becomes real easy. It's real easy to recognize the negative about people because the enemy likes to make sure it gets broadcast. And in what would be subtle in one place, the enemy he broadcasts it because he's an accuser. And so it's really easy to pick up in the spirit negative things about people, because if the enemy is around at all, he's trying to, hey, everybody look how evil they are, look how bad they are. And they're sitting there thinking, look how bad I am, look at how evil I am. And that's easy. It's a lot harder to go the realm of God, who is humble and doesn't violate and invites people in, because he reveals what needs to be revealed, not what can be revealed. And so that recognizing that difference is key, and learning that place of the heart and coming back. One of the things we talked about in Introduction to the Prophetic is it marked by love? We talked, one of the guys of the Kansas City Prophets, his name was Paul Cain. Paul Cain had a crazy gift of the word of knowledge, where he ministered with William Branham back in the 60s, and he operated in this level to the level where in the 80s, a number of times when he would begin to minister, the angel of the Lord would come and stand next to him. And when he came, it would blow every electrical circuit in the building and the fire alarms would go off. They cleared out so many different buildings because of fire alarms going off while he was ministering, because the power would just, this power surge would come. And he'd tell people their addresses and their phone numbers, and I mean, just crazy details, crazy details. And he tells this story himself, and so I know that this is safe to tell. When he started out his ministry, it was easy. I mean, he could just see people sin, and he would get invited because everybody's like, oh, wow, this prophet, he gets all these hidden stuff. And then he'd never get invited again because the pastors had to clean up the mess after he left. They're like, I ain't doing with that again. So he got lots of invitations, but not a lot of invitations back. And one time he is ministering at a church, and while he's ministering at the church, he points out this young man that was in the second row over here. He goes, young man, would you stand up? He has him stand up. He was sitting with his wife, but he has him stand up alone. And he points at this young lady over here. Now, this was the associate pastor at the church. This is the church secretary. She's sitting with her husband. Would you stand up? And you two have been having an affair. And the associate pastor, he comes running to the front and throws himself at his feet. I feel so stuck. I just want to be free. How do I get free? And Paul Cain's like, I'm just telling you what I saw. I don't know how to be free. And he heard the Lord speak to him audibly. He says, they don't need to know what they already know. Tell them what they don't know. I still have a plan for their life. Completely changed his ministry from that moment on. Completely changed his ministry from that moment on. And he would recognize the problem, and then he would look for the solution. And he would look for the plan. And I know I've had this happen where I call somebody out of a crowd and I'm prophesying over them, and I can see the issues. I can see what it is that they're doing to their wife and the issues that they have with finances, and there's a little bit of there's some alcohol abuse that's going on, and I start prophesying over them this future of how God's going to use them, and I'm thinking to myself, man, they're just going to think that this is justifying their problems. But I've got to speak the truth. I've got to speak the life and give them hope so that they can move out of it, because that's what's going to give them the impetus to be able to come free. And I can hear people's thoughts while I'm doing it. I can hear people's thoughts. Oh, he doesn't really know who they are, because if he really knew who they were, that he would be saying this. Well, that kind of sounds familiar. Oh, if this man was a prophet, he would know what manner of woman she is. And Jesus knew exactly who she was. Right. And he doesn't look at her and say, oh, you're so sinful. He looks at her and says, woman, you're forgiven. Go and be free. Now that's a prophet. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now that's so key when it comes to the prophetic, because it's easy and it's flashy and it's impressive. Man, you tell people the secrets of people's hearts, people start crying and they run out of the room and everybody's like, oh, the prophet, he knows all this stuff. But you just ruined somebody's life. And now they think that God is angry, that God doesn't like them, God doesn't have a plan for them, and he's just as fed up with them as they are of themselves. That's not good fruit. Maybe you tell somebody that God still has a plan when they're walking in that place, and you start speaking out the life that's there, and all of a sudden they realize that God still loves them, and the voice that the accuser's been speaking into them, telling how evil they are and how unlovely they are, and they're worthless and they can't ever get it back, and all of a sudden God's truth speaks into that and it breaks the power of that lie, and that's the very thing that they needed to stop sinning. Because as long as they're accusing themselves, they're stuck in the pattern. But as soon as they realize the forgiveness and the love of God, it actually breaks them free of the pattern. Now all of a sudden you're ministering life and people change. That's what it's supposed to look like.